Hi, I'm glad you're here. It's me, a real person on this side of the mic, not a synthetic voice. I want this to feel like a real conversation, even if I'm the only one talking. And if you hear me having a human moment or shift in my chair, it's just because I'm actually here with you. Thanks for being here, because I want to tell you a bedtime story about making things that are delicious. Maybe it's a dish you already like and are familiar with, or maybe you want to hear about something you don't already know much about. Either way, even though I'm here to keep you company, I'm not going to be offended if you drift off and stop listening. I'll just quietly finish. So don't resist fading away, okay? Before I start, please know I'm going to read your comments and I'm interested to know where you're listening from. Let me know who you are and leave any comments to tell me what you like about the food we talk about. Also, please subscribe so you can come back to hear more. There's so many stories I want to tell you. Okay, so do me a favor. Let those shoulders drop, close your eyes, and I'll start your story. Imagine a bustling street corner in Saigon at dawn. The air is thick with a gentle humidity, a warm blanket that carries the scent of roasted coffee and wood smoke. Beneath that, there is a sharp, bright melody of citrus and salt. You're standing in the intersection of history, where the East meets the West in a single crusty loaf of bread. Let's talk about making lemongrass pork banh mi. Today, we aren't just making a sandwich. We're weaving a tapestry of 1,000 years. We're gathering the resilience of a culture and the softness of a quiet afternoon into a meal that feels like home, even if you've never been there. Let's begin with the heart of our dish, the pork. But before we touch the heat, we need to take a moment to understand the lemongrass. Look at the stalks, sturdy, pale green, fading into a woody cream color. Lemongrass is the soul of Southeast Asia aromatics. It's been used for centuries, not just for flavor, but as medicine to calm the stomach and brighten the spirit. We marry this with garlic, the white truffle of the common man, and fish sauce. Fish sauce is the heartbeat of Vietnamese cuisine. It's fermented patience. Salt and anchovies left to sit in large wooden barrels under the sun until they transform into liquid gold that tastes like the sea's own memory. We add dark brown sugar for a hint of molasses sweetness and a touch of cornstarch to give the pork a velvet soft texture. As you massage these ingredients into the pork shoulder, you can feel the coolness of the meat and the grit of the sugar. This is a slow process. In the quiet of the marinade, the flavors are getting to know each other. While our pork rests, let's talk about the banh mi itself. Its history is a story of transformation. In the mid-19th century, the French arrived in Vietnam, bringing with them their baguettes, their butter, and their pâtés. To the French, the baguette was a rigid tradition, but the Vietnamese people are masters of adaptation. They took the heavy wheat-based French loaf and made it their own. They added rice flour to the dough, making the crust thinner, crispier, and the inside as light as a cloud. They replaced expensive butter with creamy mayonnaise and added the crunch of pickled vegetables. What started as a colonial import became a symbol of Vietnamese identity, a street food that conquered the world. When you hold a baguette today, you're holding a piece of 1950s Saigon, where the first modern banh mi stalls began stuffing airy rolls with everything they had. As we prepare our spreads, consider the pâté. It's rich, smooth, and grounded. It represents the earth. Then there's the traditional Vietnamese ham. To make it, pork is pounded until it becomes a fine paste, wrapped tightly in banana leaves, and steamed. When you unwrap it, You smell the faint, tea-like aroma of the leaf. It's a texture like no other, bouncy, clean, and subtle. To truly understand the banh mi, we have to linger on the pate. If the lemongrass pork is the soul of the sandwich, the pate is its shadow, deep, mysterious, and essential. In the traditional French culinary world, pate de campagne was rustic, coarse, country terrain. But as it traveled to the humid streets of Vietnam, it transformed. The Vietnamese took the French concept and softened it, making it silkier and more savory. In a small kitchen in the heart of Hanoi or Saigon, making pate is a labor of devotion. It begins with fresh pork liver, soaked in milk to draw out any bitterness, leaving only a creamy, iron-rich sweetness. It's sautéed with shallots and garlic, lots of garlic, until it becomes a fragrant, buttery paste. When you spread the pate onto your toasted baguette, notice the color, a soft, earthy rose or a muted gray-brown. It's often topped with a thin layer of lard before being steamed, creating a seal of richness. This isn't just a condiment, it's a foundation. It fills the nooks and crannies of the airy bread, ensuring that every bite has a base of umami. In the early 20th century, pate was a luxury, a sign of the elite. But the Vietnamese street vendors turned it into a people's spread. They realized that a thin layer of this rich, savory velvet could elevate a humble piece of bread into a feast. It provides the deep bass note that balances the high, citrusy scream of the lemongrass. Now, we move to the stove. Hear the click of the flame. We use a cast iron grill pan because we want the char. We want the breath of the wok. As the lemongrass pork hits the hot surface, the sugar begins to caramelize. The kitchen fills with a scent that is sweet, smoky, and electric. It's the smell of a night market. We only need a minute or two on each side. We want the edges to be crisp and dark, while the center remains succulent. While the meat rests, letting its juices settle back into the fibers, we prepare the ice to balance the fire. The Persian cucumbers, cool, crisp, and refreshing. The pickled carrots and daikon. These are the bright sparks, soaked in vinegar and sugar. They provide the crunch that wakes up the palate. The cilantro, a floral herbal finish. The jalapeno, a sudden sharp warmth. Let's look closer at some of these components we're going to be assembling. Let's start with the pickled daikon and carrot. In the jars of Vietnamese grandmothers, these two vegetables are inseparable. They represent the crunch of life. The daikon is a large winter radish. Raw, it's peppery and sharp, almost aggressive. But when it meets the brine, a gentle bath of white vinegar, sugar, and water, it surrenders its bite and becomes something translucent and mellow. Pickling was never just about flavor. It was about survival. In a land of monsoon rains and intense heat, fermentation was a way to stop time. It allowed families to keep the harvest of the cool season well into the summer. The orange of the carrot represents vitality and luck, while the white of the daikon represents purity. Together, they are the fireworks of the sandwich. As they sit in their brine, they develop a slight funk, a fermented tang that cuts through the fat of the pork shoulder like a cool breeze on a humid day. Now, let's rest our minds on the cilantro and cucumber. In the West, we often view herbs as a garnish, a decorative afterthought. But in Vietnam, herbs are treated as a vegetable in their own right. They are the freshness that makes the heavy, grilled elements digestible. The Persian cucumber is chosen for its thin skin and concentrated crunch. It acts as a thermal regulator. As you eat the warm, grilled pork, the cold cucumber lowers the temperature of your palate, preparing you for the next spicy hit of jalapeno. And the cilantro. Its botanical name is Coriandrum sativum. It's been cultivated for over 3,000 years. In the Banh Mi, it provides the high notes. It smells of citrus and green stalks. It's the final layer of the tapestry, the bright green ribbon that ties the whole gift together. Now comes the most meditative part. Taking the baguette, we slice it open, feeling the resistance of the crust and the softness of the crumb. For the foundation, smear mayo on one side, cool and rich, and then spread the pâté on the other, deep and savory. For the body, tucked inside come the cucumbers, the bright orange and white of the pickles, and the green lace of the cilantro. And for the spark, finally, the jalapeno. Let's look closer at the bread. The baguette in Vietnam is an engineering marvel born of necessity. Because wheat doesn't grow easily in the tropical heat of Southeast Asia, bakers began blending wheat flour with rice flour. This was a stroke of accidental genius. The rice flour makes the dough less glutinous, which creates that signature shatter. When you press down on a banh mi, you should hear a sound like dry leaves crinkling underfoot. The crust is so thin, it's almost like a shell, while the interior is nearly hollow. In Vietnamese, the soft inside of the bread is the same word used for intestines or the gut. It's the most tender part. When you pull some of it out to make room for more pork and pickles, you're creating a vessel. You are literally carving out a space for the story to be told. As you close the sandwich, feel the weight of it. It's a perfect balance. It's salty and sweet, crunchy and soft, hot and cold. Why do we love this sandwich? Why has it traveled from the street corners of District 1 in Saigon to the glass-fronted cafes of London, the food trucks of Austin, and the bustling delis of Sydney? People love Banh Mi because it's a masterclass in sensory contrast. In the culinary world, we often talk about dynamic contrast. It's the phenomenon where our brains are most delighted by foods that offer opposing sensations simultaneously. There's the temperature, the searing charred heat of the lemongrass pork against the refrigerator cold snap of the pickled daikon. The texture, the aggressive glass-like shatter of the crust, followed by the pillowy give of the crumb, the buttery slide of the pâté, and the watery crunch of the cucumber. And the flavor, the big five of the palate. Salty from the fish sauce, sweet from the brown sugar, sour from the pickled carrots, spicy by the jalapeno, and umami from the pâté and pork. It's a complete emotional experience in a single handheld vessel. It feels indulgent because of the meats and mayo, yet light and medicinal because of the forest of fresh herbs and vinegar. It's a meal that never leaves you feeling heavy. It leaves you feeling vibrant. When the Vietnamese dispersion began in the mid-1970s, Banh Mi traveled in the hearts and memories of those seeking new homes. As it landed in different climates and cultures, it did what it had always done. It adapted. In the United States, particularly in California, Banh Mi underwent a scaling up. In San Jose and Westminster, shops like Lee's Sandwiches turned the humble street snack into a high-volume staple. Here, the bread became slightly larger and the fillings more varied. The house special became a mountain of cold cuts, reflecting the American love for hearty, oversized portions. In places like Texas and the Pacific Northwest, Banh Mi began to dance with local flavors. There's the bulgogi banh mi. In areas with large Korean communities, the lemongrass pork is sometimes swapped for thin-sliced ribeye, marinated in pear juice and soy, blending two iconic Asian barbecue traditions. There's also the breakfast banh mi. In many Western cafes, you'll find a version featuring a runny fried egg. As the yolk breaks, it mingles with the pâté and mayo to create a rich, golden sauce that rivals any Eggs Benedict. And then there's the vegan evolution. In Portland and Melbourne, the pork is often replaced by smoked tofu or mock duck, marinated in the same lemongrass and 5-spice aromatics, proving that the spirit of banh mi lies in its seasonings and textures, not just its protein. In France, banh mi has a full circle moment, the baguette returning to its birthplace but transformed by the soul of the East. Outside of Vietnam, banh mi has become a gateway food. It's often the first dish that introduces a person to the complexity of Vietnamese cuisine. It's approachable because it looks like a familiar sub or hoagie. But once you take a bite, it transports you somewhere entirely new. Every time a baker in a suburb of Toronto or a small town in Germany pulls a tray of crispy baguettes from the oven, they are keeping a flame alive. They're using the local flour, the local water, and the local pork, but they're breathing the air of Saigon into it. This adaptation isn't a loss of authenticity. Instead, it's a testament to the vibrancy of the culture. A culture that is not frozen in time, but is a living, breathing thing that grows and changes whenever it finds soil. In our modern world, we often treat eating as a task to be completed, a fuel stop between obligations. But banh mi demands your presence. You cannot eat it mindlessly. The crust is too crunchy, the flavors too vibrant to ignore. There's a true cultural significance with food. It creates a sacred pause. It's a boundary between the chaos of the world and the peace of the home. Why do we love banh mi? Because it's a sensory hug. It's the definition of cozy in a way that isn't heavy. It's the way the crust shatters against your teeth, followed by the pillowy bread, the savory meat, and the vinegary snap of the vegetables. Sit down in a quiet spot, perhaps by a window where the light is soft. Listen to the crunch of the first bite. Banh mi is more than a recipe. The story of banh mi is a story of harmony found in contradiction. It's proof that out of complexity, we can find simplicity. Out of a heavy history, we can create something light and beautiful. Food is our most resilient archive. When people are displaced, when borders shift, or when history becomes turbulent, they can't always take their homes, their art, or their books. But they carry their recipes in their muscle memory. Enjoy the warmth. Stay in this coziness as long as you need. The world can wait. This meal is a bridge between cultures and history, and you are currently standing right in the center of it. You have created something beautiful.